Today, I wanted to talk about external authority programming, which is a big programming, very active in our reality, of course. We see it playing, of course, in the media, with anything that has to do with our government. Many mentors are counting on this programming being very active in the field of their cult followers. We find this programming being very active and reinforced in schools. I believe that most of this programming is also installed through MK Ultra methods, either remotely, either through involvement in covered projects. It is meant to break the self-esteem of someone, their trust in themselves and their own abilities. So of course, we see a lot of consensus behaviors all around us, especially every time a big engineer operation is being launched, but we also find all these consensus behaviors in our personal life on micro levels. This programming is really made to trap you inside your own mind, to make you feel like you're in prison. You might feel boxed, you might feel compressed, you might feel triggered. And sometimes it creates like a split where you feel like you have to go against your discernment because you have a sense of loyalty, or because you have delegated a part of your power to an external source, and you both are going in different direction, which kind of create an area of dissonance, right? That's where also we find the phenomenon of cognitive dissonance, when somebody is stuck in some patterns due to not being willing at that moment to acknowledge the full picture of what is really going on, and they might be used to gaslight you because they are in this denial pattern, which might trigger you into your external authority programming. So everybody also gets triggered, and we see we are really encouraged to loop in many hamster wheels, because it's very difficult to focus if that programming is really active in you. You know, it's kind of all the time come back to your mind, and your mind is trying to find a solution for the pain it's experiencing, right? So often the person who is experiencing cognitive dissonance is deluded due to an ego trap, an ego seduction as well. They might be reactive also and triggered also, which might cause a series of triggers. So we see how everybody is kind of getting triggered, and this is how the overlords kind of keep their agenda very active here. Not reacting, not being reactive is most of the time more easily said than done, though it's really an art not to answer the triggering and not to go in any of their reactive layers, because there are many different reactive layers. You know, it's not just the main one. So that's what the program wants. The program wants to trigger you, so you go in reactive mode, and then you follow the agendas of the overlords, because they are responsible for installing all this programming in you. They know where it leads, and it leads to their agendas being fulfilled. So we understand why it's really necessary for us to get out of these patterns, because that's the only way for us not to be controlled. When you are not reacting, you are not controlled. You know, you are in mastery, and you are you are choosing something else than what the program wants for you. Generally, when this programming is triggered, we can notice that there is a certain amount of dependency towards an external authority, an external source that is not ourselves. And even sometimes if you know in your body. You remember how it was if you left a cult or if you dealt with an abuser. You've seen the truth of what was really going on, and for some reason this truth is not strong enough for you to believe in it, right? In any solid relationship that you have, important relationship that you have here, you're gonna be tested at some moment, because that's just how it goes here. And if in the relationship you can succeed with doing a mistake, for example, or with not having it perfect, then it's going to strengthen the relationship. And that's very precious. It's also going to show you that the other person is able to work through some entitlement, some outrage programming, some ego structures. So I find that every time I come to a test in my relationships, if we are able to reconnect or go through the triggering without like falling for what the overlords have in mind, then it's kind of building on something really much more solid, right? I think it's a fairy tale to think that our relationships, even our good ones, with beings that we trust. Sometimes we also trust our handler, and we think some of our friends are our friends, but they are in fact saboteurs. They are, and it's a hard truth to wake up to. And I think at a certain level on the path, you're gonna deal with very unconscious spirited beings who have a high degree of manipulations, who are not really doing the work, who are passive aggressive, who are easily thought injected, and they're going to be used to distract you at a very specific time, especially if you're working on a project that is very dear to you. They're going to be sent repetitively, and they have no awareness that they are being puppeted. So I find that to really have close relationships or to share space with other beings, I find some criteria really being necessary. Some of these are that we need to have some awareness of MK Ultra, mind control, and the awareness around MK Ultra is really prevalent. Then I feel that you need a connection. They need to like what you do and how you are expressing. And one of my biggest lesson around external authority programming happened end of 2019, where I was exiting a very controlled hive mind environment. And, I've gone through all the steps dealing with, cult enablers and dealing with the shadow projections. So I think this experience, which was very strong for me, really helped me now to identify and recognize also. And thanks to that this experience and the work that I've done to free myself and give credit to my perception and stand in alignment with myself, I've been able to deprogram faster, to recognize that programming way faster, and to do much of the work, to be able to do much of the work now on my own. So the triggers, as I said, really show you where you are delegating your power. Of course, we all have our blind spots or weakness or wounding, and that's where the controllers and different ET factions, when they see our weakness and our attachment to certain things, they really want to take advantage of that to their own for their own advantage, you know. So you see, it's like a reaction thing, because you might be triggered into your rescuer, which is a reactive behavior already. So following this chain of reactive behavior usually is leading to more triggering. So a lot is being made for us to be intimidated and not walking into our powers. That's for sure. It might take, 10 years to someone sometimes to being willing to open their eyes about an abusive situation, for example, or they might even never address it. For some being, they will probably never address the first layers of victimhood consciousness here. Or, they believe so much into the stories of the abuse they have experienced when they are young, then, it's going to be very tricky for them, and so they're going to just project it in the exterior and reliving the abandonment and so on. So one thing I've learned is to also really work on that savior programming. It's still partially active, but I would say that I've been deprogramming layers of it, and I'm much quicker at recognizing when it's playing in my life. And the work cannot be forced onto anybody. If we are where we are in our lives, that's because we were willing to explore. No one had to hold our hands. We were curious to look for answers. It usually starts with the conspiracy topics and so on. So just walking on your own path, working with others who are also doing their work, and not getting distracted by all the manipulation, just saboteurs, is extremely difficult to do, because you have to say no to many different types of negative attention. You have to overcome some of your dopamine nervous response, because these relationships, the handling type, have usually a quite addictive compound. It's kind of plugged to your own nervous system. So for handling, it's going to be every time a different style. The matrix has so many different styles of handling in store for us. It's going to be different. Of course, it's always more powerful when it comes from another spirited beings, or beings who is puppeted by spirited energies. So indeed, it is usually like a cross-dimensional handling happening, because you have ED faction also involved into kind of puppeting everyone, thanks to their favorite tool, mind control. So external authority programming has its own signature, so does gaslighting. And you will see what it activates, because it might activate different things. Because of the gaslighting, you might be looping into guilt programming. Because if it's gaslighting you, then you will be doubting about the truth you have built for yourself about your own experience. Of course, it's gonna, like all their agendas are always trying to plug to your core wounds of not trusting you. And what they want is to suppress your growth, and especially distract you from whatever useful you are working on today. And this can take many different forms. I find that the trap is really to engage in too deep in the trigger, to overshare. It can be a trap also in itself. It's also, sometimes it's very good, to, but it's very hard. Just take that time for yourself to process it. And I find that the more you do it, the quicker it goes. There is deliberate handling, there is unconscious handling. In the moment where we are in denial, we really want to hold on and believe to the experience that we think we have had. And that's the perfect example of a false memory, where we think we have experienced something where we don't acknowledge that something was hidden, and that handling was going on. So the denial is preventing us to see through that cover story. And usually we also have alters being engaged, people-pleasing alters or cabal-loyal alters who have their own vision of this reality. And if we don't, we really need to train to pick up all these signatures within us, because and know how much of our alters are expressing, and you have a ton of alters for sabotage, for example. So when you're really sabotaging yourself, it's a great moment to kind of really observe the signatures of everything that's going on inside of you. And sabotage is also part of that divide programming. So some things that we can be asking ourselves is it worth for me to go for the drama? Do I have time and energy for that right now? Or do I want to hold on to my project that is very dear to me? Especially sometimes that's a period of your life where you manage to focus, because sometimes your own ADHD and your own inner life can be very distracting in itself. You don't always need something exterior to you. But when you can focus, you're gonna have a lot of circus around you. The matrix gonna also try to trigger and send you anything they can, anything that is available around your living space. You might know what is going on, but it's still an access of your nervous system. So, is it worthy for me to lose that relationship for one moment where I've been triggered? Can I go over that? Can I not take the bait? Can I dismantle what is happening in my body and in my mind? Have I been here before? So it's important to identify the entry point. How did it get in? Where do I delegate my power away? How is my mind being controlled? Where in my daily life am I on automatic rails? Where am I answering a lot of exterior stimuli? It might be, friends requesting or help, or even asking for a call, but sometimes it is distraction. So because they are themselves thought injected, So it's good to keep an open mind and not see everyone as a threat or, having this doubt constantly, but it's also good to kind of keep questioning on a micro level what is happening. And many of the triggers actually here are not gonna trigger you hugely straight away. They might slightly trigger you, but the huge trigger is going to come a few hours later or a day after, when all your kind of programming is kind of melting together. So it is because of the interpretations you're going to make about this, and maybe, because it is a hard thing to really stand in the truth of who you are alone, even if no one is validating your truth. And I think it is one of the main exercises that we have to work on here. And of course, many of the spirited beings here don't even feel that they are being triggered. And it was my case in the past, you know, when I was consuming a lot more of stimulants or numbing food, and I hadn't done like physical therapy and a lot of healing work. You know, I would feel annoyed, but I could not feel them, the triggers, as I feel them today it's on a much more denumb body. And even every trigger has their own signatures. You're not going to feel each of them the same way in your body. Some will be more around your heart, some will be around the solar plexus, you know, some will shut down your throat chakra, your ability to speak for yourself. So I would say that working on self-trust is really, really important here. Identifying all the entry point for external authority programming, just going over that very dopamine run, very reactive way of you know, engaging with others. And it's definitely a great victory, because what the controllers most of the time want to lead you to is division and separation, you know, and then looping into shame and guilt. So I have many different examples in my personal life where me and my entourage, we actually did succeed into going through these experiences and getting stronger. And then every time it happened, it feels like a new degree of relating is reached, and a new level of trust is reached. And for that, you know, a lot of work on codependency has also to be made, where, you know, you don't need any other being than yourself to kind of back up, validate your own truth, your own experience, and owning the choices that you have made for you, because you know they are good choices for you. That is how the handling of the controller is partially defeated. I'm very enthusiastic with some of the ways I've been able to not go on automatic rails. I think it's one of the fundamental ways where you know, you are able to avoid many traps that are, you know, paved for you. There is a different kind of reward, not to go with all the nervous system response, but to choosing calmness, and also choosing an option that is really good for us. So choosing us, in the end, it has to do with that. It has to do with self-love over sabotage. Okay, because that's where external authority triggering can also lead you to self-sabotage your own life by creating drama and a lot of distraction. So this is some of what has been happening in how I've been observing all these chain reactions. And of course, there is so much more to say and to dissect about all of that.